Hello people, I'm Radu and I'm very excited to tell you my story on how I adopted liquid glass in one of my applications, which is called FootballGather. It's a simple companion app for organizing and tracking friendly football matches, letting you add players, build teams and keep score in real time. You can set match timers, view past game history and manage team lineups, all with a clean and easy to use interface. And I adopted liquid glass using the new Agentic coding from Xcode, and it was quite interesting to do. If you don't know what's liquid glass, it's a relatively new software design pattern introduced by Apple last year that gives iOS, macOS, and other platforms from Apple a translucent glass-like look. It features dynamic blur depth and light effects, creating a more fluid and unified interface experience across like all Apple devices. It was quite nice to see. Okay, cool. So on the left, I have the old application running the app without the liquid glass, and on the right, I have a new simulator with like app after I applied the liquid glass effect using the agentic coding from Xcode. The app is fairly simple. It has two tabs, players and pass gathers here. Inside the players screen, you'll see the list of players you currently have. You can add like a lot of them infinitely. There's no number. You go here with the add plus button. You enter the name of the player. If you want to assign some optional add things like skill and position. Of course, you can edit the details later from the details page. You could also delete if you don't like any players from here or you've made a mistake. And after you're done adding the players, you go into this selection screen where you'd confirm your players for the gather, the match, and you place by drag and drop the players inside one of the teams here, team A and team B. In order for the match to start, you need at least two players, at least one player in team A and at least one player in team B. For the sake of this demo, I'm just using two players, but imagine you have like five in each team. All right, after you're done picking up teams for your players, you go into this main view called Gather in Progress, where the action happens. Like imagine you're on the field, you started playing, and you usually have like personally use like 10 minutes per match. But you could assign like what kind of time interval you want by modifying here the minutes and seconds. And then you click start. After the timer runs out, you'd get an alert saying like time's up, your gather has been finished. You might want to adjust the scroll, whatever you need, and then end the gather. So pretty simple, nothing fancy here. After you're done with your gathers and matches, it's important that maybe you want to see some history of your matches. And here you have this view past gathers with details about the matches that happened in the past. And that's it. That's the whole application. All right. And as you saw, it contains like 4 or 5 screens in total. On the right, I've applied liquid glass with the agentic coding workflow, and it looks much better. Even this list, it contains like a grouped inset table now, like a list view in SwiftUI. By the way, the app is fully in SwiftUI. As you can see, those the buttons and everything is now like having this liquid glass effect. They are more concentric. I like this transition where like from edit to the next screen where you have this back arrow, you see this nice transitioning of morphing from one state to another. Also, these two buttons which are grouped together are combining into one, this save button, and the confirm players, which was pretty ugly before, now it has this arrow, the next button, which advances to the next screen. This screen has been completely rewritten from UIKit to SwiftUI. Back then I had this drag functionality, but it's not that practical for users. So I prefer to have this approach where people would tap on a row on a player and it would like have some options, move to team A or move to team B. or if you want to put it back on bench, you put it back on bench by selecting it here. But right, so as you can see here, it's much better. And the gather in progress view has been completely revamped. I have these concentric elements, widgets, or whatever we want to call them, which have some nice shadow effect compared with this plain UI where you have some elements here and there. It might create a bit too many rigid elements here. The set timer looks great. I have now here like these two rectangles, like very smooth, and I also have the labels being more into this capsule UI, looking much better. And have disabled, enable states, and much nicer. The animations look way better with liquid glass in mind. And the cards, the scorecards are looking great compared to what it was before. And finally, this FootballGather screen, you see now it's been completely revamped. I have these nice cards with the score on the right, emphasized with some shadow effect, and they look much better. And also, if I'm going to edit mode, you see it looks much smoother, very nice, compared to this delete button, which was like a bit older in terms of UI. Okay, cool. So how I did it was not that complicated. So I just wanted to play around with the agentic coding and see what we can achieve with it. So essentially, if I'm going through the list of commits, by the way, the project is open source. You can check it out on GitHub. There's no constraints there. And I'd recommend you to go commit by commit to see the actual changes. Alright, so I didn't spend that many days, like I would say like half a day or 1 day maximum to complete everything on liquid glass. It started, so I started with a glass icon button UI view. So I started with this glass icon button. Let me put it on the right so it's visible, which is this button. The confirm players is now like this arrow with green. So I started with that. Claude created this class for me so it can be reused in multiple views. But the thing is not that like glass icon. When you read the name glass icon button, you might think, oh right, this is like very glass icon-ish, button-ish element. Well, it's not. It just contains this button style that glass, which does all the trick for you. Like there's nothing weirder than that. And it was quite nice to see that through the agentic coding, it also created the previews for my UI. And as I progressed with the transformation, I could see some UI elements not looking that great. Take, for example, if I'm going to the start gather, to gather in progress screen, this screen, there was some problems that I noticed when those buttons were in a disabled state on a light mode screen. They were not very visible to users, so this is you see it knows it's in a disabled state, but before that was barely visible, and also the text here set time was not that visible when the button was in disabled state. So through the agentic coding, it created screenshots out of the SwiftUI previews, iterated over those SwiftUI previews until I was comfortable with the UI, and those buttons were visible for the users. But I liked that without me specifying in the prompt, it knew how to take those screenshots and iterate over them until the button was visible, and then I confirmed, okay, now we can adopt this view with the buttons being visible like that. All right, so rather than doing for all the project for all screens, I decided to take screen by screen, and I found it very well to do it like that. And as I progressed from one screen, I said, okay, let's do this, apply the liquid glass, and then move on to the next screen and so on. And it did that, applying effects. I was also focusing on padding, so they look neat for the users, doing more than liquid glass itself. But overall, it was focused on the liquid glass adoption. All right, so there are some commits for going through the screens to see how it applied. And after I was done with the commits, I wanted to focus also on the tests. This app has a bunch of UI tests, and I use a few UI tests to also create some screenshots to publish on the App Store. But now they were broken. Because I was completely rewriting this confirm player as screen. Back then was the UI kit version with drag and drop. So through the UI test, the entries here, the rows were dragged and dropped. And now there was a different mechanism. Just tap on a row and then tap on the team that you want that player to go to. And there was some bad results. I don't think the models are well trained, and the prompts that Apple has contain enough information to apply the best practices on the UI tests. Take, for example, instead of using accessibility identifiers, it like directly hard-coded the name of the player, as in we always had the same dummy data there, but and also the elements were hard-coded on the language, for example, instead of using the accessibility identifiers. So I had to iterate a lot of times to get it right. And that provoked, like, it gave a lot of credit consumption, credit usage out of my Anthropic code plan, my Anthropic plan. That was a problem, but eventually you could iterate, learn, and then create a skill, for example, for your Claude Code agent that could be used in future when you have to do some kind of things to UI tests, applying the best practices. I'm sure there are plenty of things of skills out there as well already created. You could update them and apply them to your needs, of course. And after I was done with the UI tests, I've done so this app uses the fast. So on CI, I'm having some GitHub actions which trigger the unit, the UI test, and so on through Fastlane action. So I've asked Claude to update the Agentic workflow from Xcode to update the CI part, and it correctly did. And my CI was up to date as well. It updated the gems and then the readmes you can see here. So that went very well. What I learned out of this experience was some pretty cool stuff. First of all, like, if you don't exactly, so first of all, to connect to the agentic coding from Xcode, you have to go here to the intelligence. I won't go that much into details. There are plenty of YouTube videos and documentation that goes through like the steps. And then you select, like, if you want Codex or Tropic or a different provider, you go there and connect your provider through this menu. I have Opus plus Sonnet. The model probably uses Opus for planning mode and Sonnet for execution. And you could like use whatever you want. And when you create a new chat, you'd go here and select the agentic, this part, the agentic thing. But if you don't know exactly some part, like, hey, I want to learn more about, let me put it here, I could ask. And the agentic workflow will give you the information, like the LLM will directly answer your questions with what you want to learn about. So for example, you can ask, what skills do you have? And this Claude Code, this instance is telling me that I'm Claude Code, I'm part of Anthropic, and I'm listing here what I can do and topics and so on. And I have a skill here which is interesting, Swift testing expert, and I'm going to talk next about it. And also, like, what Claude agent version are you? I'm powered by Claude Sonnet 4.6, and it depends like what model you select over there in the menu. But what's interesting is like this available skill. You have a folder in your local disk. So Xcode comes bundled when using Claude. It has its own version of Claude Code. It doesn't point to the same version that you're using on your machine. That's very important to know, because you might get some updates, or you have some different configuration on your machine's Claude Code, which is different from what you would expect to get from Xcode. And you might want to be careful, because you don't have the same models. There might be an update from Anthropic adding more models to Claude Code, and you wouldn't get those into your Xcode. But there are some tricks where you could override this Claude instance with the bin, or create a shortcut to point to the bin folder which contains the instance of your Claude across your machine. I won't go into details again. This information is available on the internet, but you could replace this Claude bundled instance that comes with Xcode with the actual version that you have on your machine. And if you want to create stuff like skills, or like different configuration, different documentation that this instance of Claude can read, you'd go here into this Claude agent config from the library folder, library developer Xcode. And here you'd place inside the Xcode like skills, like information, coding assistant, Claude agent, like skills. I have here, I have this Swift testing expert that you saw inside Xcode here, the available skill. And I think this one was from Antoine van der Lee, and it's like you could, and it's really good. It transforms your XC tests into the new way of writing tests with Swift testing. Right, cool. That's very cool. And you could empower this Xcode Claude agent to offer like more than what it gives. But there's also some cool stuff. So Xcode comes with its own tools, MCP tools for building project, taking screenshots, going through files, and so on and so forth. But maybe you don't like Xcode that much as an IDE, and you have Cursor, or you want to use more the terminal to run things. There's a way to do that, and you would give your external agent coding tools access to Xcode. Essentially, it gets access to those MCP tools that came out with Xcode, Agentic coding. And for example, to configure the extended tools, you'd add on the MCP server. You can run this command on your Claude, and it will give you the capability for MCP from Claude Code. So take, for example, here I have an instance of Claude Code. And if I run that command, I will see here I'm connected with Xcode. Let's reconnect here. It restarts the MCP server process. So now Xcode will say, hey, someone wants to access me. Allow Claude Code to access my Xcode, and it gives some information about PID, process identifier. And if you click allow, then you are now reconnected to Xcode, and you could directly build project, and it will use Xcode tools to build that. You see here, build succeeded, and that's quite awesome. And of course, you have the same capabilities you use this Agentic workflow on the left of the Xcode. And you see here what's connected. You have these three things, this triangle. 3 dots, and this gives you information that, hey, someone is connected to my tools, and I have here Claude Code and Cursor currently active. I also have some inactive instances of Claude Code, and it's quite awesome because now you are like don't have to install external MCP tools to build project, to do all those stuffs. You could directly use the ones that Apple created, and I found it very cool, especially on documentation. If you want to search something on new APIs, you could do that very easy, and you could create your own skills based on that documentation. That's quite nice. But you also can do it from Cursor. You have this tools MCP, and you add your MCP. Here I have the old one, but this one is the new Xcode, and you can see it's like having an XC run with the arguments MCP bridge. That's the whole thing. Like if you go into your terminal and run XC run MCP bridge, you'll spawn that instance, the server instance that holds the MCP. And what tools do we have? Well, there are, I think, 20 tools, and each one has some specifics. You have, I have listed down my VAS cursor. What MCP do you have now? It gives me information like you have things to build the project, run all tests, run some tests, and so on. You have file operations available, like you could read, write, update, and so on. Make directories also for navigation, list navigation issues, documentation, and execution. A bunch of nice things. There's a cool, like the way it works, it needs this tab in identifier which points to the Xcode window. So if you have multiple windows of Xcode, you would use the correct tab identifier. You don't need to specify it. I mean, it knows what window to pick. And of course, if you want to learn more about those tools, you could ask your LLM and it will detail the information, give you more details about it. What's cool is that I can use cursor connected to Xcode and I can debug, build, run my agents from cursor and not go here into Xcode if I want to do that. And that applies to external LLM IDEs as well, VS Code, whatever. That's pretty awesome from my point of view. All right, that was very cool. Just to conclude, you should adopt Liquid Glass. Now you have a cool way to adopt it for your applications by directly using Xcode without having to rely on some weird stuff or manually working on through your screens. I mean, it's great to also learn. If you do it manually, you'll probably learn more. But if you can learn it from 1 to screens manually by applying them and then use the Agentic coding capability to apply for the rest of your screen, I think it's fine. There's no issue with learning from a learning perspective. I have here the app and I was wondering, all right, so I have a list of pairs and some pause gathers here. Imagine that I have hundreds of those and I would like to find a way to find my gathers or my players from the gathers. And one use case I see here is to have the search, which was not in the first migration iteration, to have the search loop here as part of the tab bar. And use the Liquid Glass way of searching, which is like more contextual across your application rather than a dedicated screen to do that. So next I'm thinking of creating the search, of course, to the Xcode coding agent, and I will keep you posted about the results. Thank you so much. And that was my story on how I used a new Xcode agentic coding to take my app further and applying the Liquid Glass, and I found it very, very cool. And I can't wait to hear your stories about how it went for you. Thank you for watching. Bye.